Hey everybody again. This is of course Ted Schmidt and Tyler Simmons is with me to do another podcast. Hi Tyler.
Hey, how you doing, Ted?
Sorry I
Take
sounded so excited to introduce you.
yeah,
I can do better.
I
Hi
was gonna
Tyler.
say
Welcome. I'm glad you're
must have
here.
put you to sleep.
Um
Yeah,
uh,
take two, I guess.
right. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the trades that happened during the offseason. This is everything up until I think actually from the end of the season to the beginning of this season, right? We've got
Yeah, the entire off season,
look at us. I screwed up and
like
delayed so much that we've got the whole thing.
like we
Um,
planned.
So let's get right into it. I think is it Seattle Huntsville that's the first one.
Correct.
So that's Motoichi Fujita that Seattle got for Esteban Sanchez. And I thought we talked a little bit before. I thought you maybe had some thoughts about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of the quintessential Stever trade. He trades a righty reliever for a lefty starter, and Sanchez has been a disappointment, I would say, in Seattle for the most part. But he's been a solid. I mean, when you look at his metrics, he's a solid pitcher. He has got 3+ WAR, 3 out of the 4 seasons. His FIP is 3.97, 4.16, and 4.35, which are all decent. But then you look overall in his 4 seasons with Seattle, or 4+ seasons in Seattle, and he's got almost a 4.8 ERA, which is not going to really get it done. So that's kind of, he was a little bit of a disappointment in Seattle as far as what his results were. And he doesn't have spectacular ratings, but he's a lefty starting pitcher that
He's got a
is.
career 95 FIP minus. I mean
Yeah,
that's
I mean he's kind of like that number 4 starter, and he's gonna do a job. He's gonna eat up 180 innings, and he's gonna do really well. And you're trading him for a righty reliever, which you could probably pick up right now for a minor league contract. So
yeah, and I don't think right. I don't think Seattle really got much here. I wonder if this is a pure salary dump. Like Seattle is losing talent here, but I'm doing the still writing the team previews. It just seems like they never end. But Seattle doesn't need this guy at all. They have so many pitchers that I don't even know that he gets a roster spot. So I wonder if this is just I'm going to just cut bait, save myself a little money, um, and maybe Fujita can turn into something at some point. Although I agree, he's 23, he probably won't. I don't know. But I thought Huntsville does well here. They get a usable piece. They didn't give up anything really. So,
yeah, I agree. I think it's a good trade for Huntsville. And you bring up a good point. That's 3.6 million off the books, and they've got more talent. Probably he's a swing guy, and that's not where he's most valuable. I still think it's an opportunity cost, an opportunity lost, I should say, for Seattle, to pick up some sort of either a flyer, relief prospect, or starting pitcher, or something that's actually valuable to them right now. So I think they kind of lost an opportunity, but it's not going to hurt them. And Huntsville picks up a valuable player, somebody that's going to, start right away for him.
yeah. Well, let's move on to the next one. That's Madison and
And me.
Jacksonville.
So yeah,
So
I mean, it's kind of just what we talked about with the last trade, but on a larger scale. I'm trading away talent and getting a lot of salary cap relief, and Madison's picking up some decent but very old talent.
right, I kind of like this one. Right, they get Jose Cavez for Madison. They get Jose Cavezos. I like it for you too. I mean, this doesn't hurt you, but they get Mario Gonzalez. They needed pitching pretty badly, and they weren't going to get pitching out of free agency. So this is decent for them. Those guys aren't amazing, and they're at this year they could fall apart. I think that Liam Bocage doesn't really matter. Judah, he could he could be okay at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
what I like about Judah is he's a lefty. I'm didn't really want to trade him. The other pitcher that I picked up was bumping from Madison, and I'm kind of hoping that he continues to do that. But then, of course, about a month after I traded, or we completed this trade, Judah bumped his stuff and velocity. So,
oh,
you
good
know,
good stuff. Yeah, good news. All right, perfect. It always seems to work that way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and Judah's got some upside. With the velocity increase and the good pitch mix, he could end up actually being the most valuable player in this deal, which is always not how you want it to go when you're the guy giving him up. Tyree for you, I mean, he could be the 27th man on a roster as a backup, but he just has no power. Um, Shaparenko has the best nickname because it describes exactly what he is. Um, Kim's okay. Kim could turn into something reasonable. Um, and Montez, maybe. Rugi, really, if anything.
Yeah, he kind of lumped a little bit too. He was looking like he might be um, a 10-7-5 guy. Now he's 10-5-5. So, but that was I would have, in a perfect world, I think I would have liked to have kept those two pitchers, but there's no way I was going to be able to
pay everybody.
To pay them $18 million. So clear up that salary cap space and pick up, a guy that's can get into the rotation maybe as a backup in the outfield, and a couple of other guys that really are just more minor league fillers that are young enough to maybe matter at some point, but probably won't. So,
yeah, this worked out okay. I hope it works out well I like things to work out for you. I get along with you. I think you're a nice guy, but it'd be nice. Madison's had some rough luck in trades recently. Where the guys they picked up have been effective, and then the guys they lost, turned into all-stars. So I hope one of these works for him. Next up is Nashville Huntsville. This is quite a few players in here too, but only one of them I think matters at all, and that is Fritz Brinson that Huntsville got. He is, again, a lefty. It's a big shock with, decent movement at 7 potential. Fastball, curveball guy, but he doesn't have a horrible verse right split, and he's 19. He could get a little stronger, and he could turn into a pretty decent reliever. And of the other guys in this deal, that Huntsville also got Jesus Lopez. He does not matter. He's got 4 motion potential, and he's 20. It'll take a miracle for that to get any better. And then I don't like Barney Everhart's return, or Barney Everhart. Brett got Barney Everhart, but I don't like Nashville's return. Barney Everhart can't play third base, which means he's a first baseman, which means he's a right-handed 6 contact, 6 power, 6-eye first baseman, and that is a AAA player. And Juan Guerrero is a AAA player, and Charles Perkins is a AAA player because he can't play defense. So he is a 6 contact, 6-eye, 7 power DH who's essentially left-handed because he can't hit left-handed pitching. So I don't like him either. And this isn't like murder or anything like that, because losing Fritz Brinson is not going to make or break Nashville. And I just got done beating up on Brett about not adding players that can play. So maybe I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here, and I'm still talking. You're just sitting there listening to me talk forever. But these aren't the kind of players I would necessarily add.
Yeah, we kind of went through this a little bit last night. I'm of the mind that if you're a team that's rebuilding, trading away relief pitchers isn't the worst thing in the world. I think, especially relief pitching prospects, you can get some decent return for them. So I don't hate that Brett traded away Brinson. I don't think that's a bad move at all, because I think he'll be able to replace that through the draft, through free agency, lots of different ways that he can kind of make that up. But I do kind of agree with you that it's not a great return. And of course, I just closed out my stuff here. But Perkins, he's a AAA player on most teams, but on Nashville, he probably makes a roster, doesn't he? And he's 23 years old. Yeah, he's not going to probably get better defensively, but he's a guy that is going to be cheap. He's going to be able to do a job. He'll play some left field, he'll play some DH, and maybe you get lucky. Everhart, right, he's kind of a throwaway. I think you could probably get pretty much the same value for nothing in free agency still. And Guerrero's just a backup catcher. So, and he's already 29 years old, so he's not going to get any better. So you would have liked to have seen, maybe to get three kind of shots at the well, but I mean, at least you get one. And the other two aren't going to kill your budget at least. So
No,
it's not a good trade for Nashville, but I don't think it's, getting robbed blind or anything like that.
no, I don't either. It's not. Again, it's not that. It's
It's a lot like, to me, it's like Seattle. You had an opportunity. You've got an asset that somebody wants, and you could get something for it, and you just don't quite hit the mark the way I think that you could. And that's just kind of my opinion there.
yeah. No, it's yeah. I don't know that you're going to get $1 million for $1 million is nothing, but I don't know that you're going to get a huge return for Fritz Brinson. I understand that. I just but maybe as him as a part of a package for something else, you do get a good return. It's not the best utilization of resources, I suppose, is where I would go with that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not trying to kill him. I don't think it's a terrible trade.
All I'm doing
Maybe
all
Perkins
week is
is
just
okay, but
killing Brett all week. That's the theme of this offseason for me. Just making an enemy. I hope he kicks my ass. I hope we meet in the Landis some days and he just destroys me, or I get moved to his division and I deserve it. What was that? I'm sorry, I keep talking.
I was just gonna say more fodder for him.
Right,
for,
yeah, just
haters.
Yep. Charm City, Brooklyn. We're just gonna do this really quick. Charm City got Earl Jackson. Brooklyn got Cash.
Yeah. Do you want to just wrap these three Brooklyn trades into kind of one? Charm City, Brooklyn, and Nashville, Brooklyn, and Yellow Springs.
Sure.
So basically, Allen trades away three of his starters last year for roughly $6 million or $5.5 million in cash, plus another I think it's 14, about another 14 million in salary cap space gain. So he gets over $20 million really kind of in money relief in exchange for just giving away three starters. So I guess kind of depends on what your value of those three starters are.
Right, and there's only one of them that I have really much value for at all. I actually don't really quite understand why Earl Jackson can really only play first base or third base. So I'm not entirely certain what Charm City even wants with him, because they've got better options at both those positions. So, oh man, he's making $6.9 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know why they would do this at all. I don't why I would pay more money, even if it's only $375K, to get a player. I don't know where he's gonna. Maybe he must have a plan for him. Let me go look and see what he's doing in spring training. Everybody gets to listen to me click even more and look through stuff. It is Earl Jackson.
He's played him at first base.
He's playing him at first base. Didn't he have somebody at first? Like Wendell Clark. Brian Hurley broke his hand, but he's got to be better than Earl Jackson at this point.
Backstrom.
Hurley's going to DH. I don't know. It seems like there should be a better option than $7 million Earl Jackson as your first baseman. But maybe there isn't. Maybe this is the new Brewster, where there's no player movement ever because free agency is crap, and so everybody's just desperate for parts. Who knows? So that's one. How do we value the other guys? I'm sorry, I'm taking too long.
I mean, Miranda's
Miranda,
kind of in
right?
Yeah, same thing. He's overpaid for what he is. He's a defensive replacement.
Right, but this is actually one I'm okay with Nashville getting, right? Because that's, again, maybe a little bit better than what they were doing, and it's $5 million. Like, he's he should be platooned, but they could just play him in center. He's
he's basically a free agent.
Yeah, and he's gone.
Yeah,
and he's better than playing total garbage there, so that's not bad. The one I kind of don't like is the Yellow Springs one, and I think that's only because on paper, Camacho just looks better than he's been. For his career, he's a 74 weighted runs created plus player. He's a super utility though, right? He can play everywhere. He's a little weak in center field, and he can't play short, but everywhere else, he's a good defender. He seems like that guy that if you got left-handers all over the place, you use him as your platoon bat. He's versatile. The game has him
Yeah,
at
but
4 stars. He should be better than this, but he's crap and he's shit in the locker room. So maybe it just doesn't matter at all.
yeah, you
Oh,
wonder maybe if a change of scenery helps him out, but I sometimes there's just those guys that in the
that
game
just don't
that
work.
they just don't. And even defensively, he looks like he'd be really good, but if you look at what he's produced, like even in the minor leagues, even with his minor league numbers, he's like right around average at second in both corner outfields, and that's not really good. I mean, you want him to be a game changer defensively, and he just hasn't been that anywhere he's played. So he's kind of like jack of all trades and master of none.
And maybe
And
he's just one of those guys that he's such a huge. I've seen some of those where like their personality's so bad they just suck. Or like that's. I mean, I've seen guys with really bad attitudes that play fine, but I have seen a couple where it does seem like they just chronically underachieve and they just got all these awful personality
yeah, there was
ratings.
who was that relief pitcher about 10 years ago and that just
God,
like bounced around
no.
from team to team, just pissing everybody in the locker room off
Oh,
and just dragging
I
every
remember
locker
that
room
guy.
down.
Yeah,
Is
because I
that
only remember that because
Estrada?
people kept trading him because he was such an asshat.
Yeah. He
And
was
like,
on my team and his ratings were amazing. And you're like, all right, this guy's a stud. And we got off to a good start and everything was okay. But as soon as we started losing, I just
yeah,
got email after email of every player on the team. Like, this guy is a dickhead. Get him off the team.
right.
So
And
he
people
cut.
would trade him, and
Like,
as soon as they got
he
on the
just
team, they would get like a mail from their bench coach that was
like,
like, "These guys are
what are you doing picking this guy up? Yeah. I don't think
oh,
Macho's that bad, but yeah, sometimes it just does seem like there's guys that they don't perform the way their ratings say they're going to perform. And not like Camacho looks like an all-star, but he looks like a guy that could play, like he could play anywhere in the outfield and be a starter, you
yeah,
know.
he shouldn't be a negative value player."
Right.
And, oh well, whatever. Those trades won't matter. Well, we tried to blaze through them, but I talked too much. San Fernando and Phoenix, where Phoenix got Jean-Luc Lacaze and Vicente Diaz, but Vicente Diaz doesn't really matter because he's 22, which means he's not going to probably bump much, which probably means that at most he's a backup or he's a AAA player. Um, but Jean-Luc Lacaze is still, six, versus right, because you're not really going to want to play him against lefties anymore. But versus right, 6 contact, 8 power, 8 eye, making 12 a year for a few years here. Great corner outfield defender, center field in a pinch. I think he can still be a productive player.
Yeah, if you got the salary cap space to fit him in, I think he's a lot better than he's showed the last 2 years. I don't know what's been going on with him, why he's hitting 220, 210. I just even if he's a low six contact, I have guys that are five contact that hit 220, 230. And so even if he's a low six, you'd think that he'd be able to hit a little bit better than that. And with his power and his ability to get on base and his steal bases and play good defense, he's still a good player. Expensive for what he is, but if you've got the cap space and he's definitely going to be a guy that can. I think he can produce, and I think he'll be able to be a good player for Phoenix. He's going to be protected by some of their other big bats, and I guess he was kind of protected, and it didn't really help him. But I don't know. I still think that there's some upside for him. So I think it's a good trade. And San Fernando needed to get some salary, and they needed to get rid of a guy that was underperforming. So I think it's a good move for both teams.
I
And I actually kind of like Diaz a little bit. Obviously, he's not a guy that you're gonna count on to be an all-star, but I've been seeing some catchers with similar looking ratings that have been okay. Like he's a guy
well,
that might be able to be a backup, and that's
sure, but he's not a guy that's hard to come by, so I don't care about him too much.
sure.
Like
Okay.
you can kind of find one of those guys like that pretty easily. There's one thing I don't like about this trade, and a much less sober version of me kind of went on to a little rant about it. That I this trade is a lot better if Phoenix trades like Martin Marin or somebody. Just they've got, you don't need Jean-Luc Lacaze, Martin Marin, Thad Meyer, Bartolo Ortiz, and Dominic Wyatt. You just it's too much. It's too many. Yeah, I guess you could now. You're really really injury proof, but
Yeah, I guess the argument could be maybe Marin was good last year, but he's got options left. Maybe he's a guy that you kind of push him back down to double or triple A, and you squeeze an extra year out of him on the other end. Or
yeah, I that's one of my pet peeves. I hate that.
well,
I
but
would.
if you've got the talent on the roster, it's not like he's being held back when he could be starting.
I
There's no
know.
reason
I
to sit
just don't
bench.
like it. I think it's bad for the league. Like that's not so much of a like a tank issue is we've got like monkeying around with service time just makes free agency crappy. Like it just I just think it's bad for leagues. You want these guys playing. You want them accruing service time. You want people paying for them. You want people not being able to pay for them, so they go to free agency. It just makes the league better. Um, so
Yeah, the other thing that maybe if you get one of those guys that gets off to a hot start, especially if it's Lacaze or Wyatt, maybe you're able to kind of flip one of those guys for something else,
you could,
and
yeah,
hold on to maybe some of their salary.
well,
And
and Phoenix doesn't need any more offense. They don't, and so they could if they. I just would it be interesting to see them trade one of those guys either into prospects or more pitching or. I mean, they look pretty good. Like on paper, Phoenix looks pretty darn good this year. I don't know. Anyway. It's a good trade. Like it's a good trade. I have no problem. I don't think that Phoenix necessarily picked up a lemon. It's just I don't know how much they needed to get Lacaze, but
yeah, I
whatever.
don't think it becomes a problem, until some of those guys start really needing some big contracts.
Right,
2 years from now, you don't want Lacaze's 12 million on the salary cap, but
right.
right now it's not a big deal. So you kind of, I think he's just hoping that he gets a good season out of one of those two guys. He's able to flip him for something in the, some kind of pitcher or some kind of prospect or something to kind of um, turn basically a free player into some sort of prospect.
Yeah, well, that's fair. So next we've got San Fernando, Nashville. Um, we talked about this a little bit yesterday when we were going to do this and then couldn't. I don't remember how far I got in. I know I talked to Randy about it a good deal, but I don't think we were talking about this trade during the podcast. And this is just one of my least favorite trades in a long time. Um, again, this isn't something where I think someone was necessarily taken advantage of. It's more of just I disagree. Like I see the strategy that's being espoused, and I disagree. And I think this has also been already discussed in a little bit great detail, kind of around various places. But um, convince me otherwise.
Yeah,
Convince me that Nashville should want Kamade more than they want Grant Lee.
I can see why he wants him. I think Brett is seeing Kamadi as an all-star center fielder, which he can be, but I
Can
just
he?
don't. I've been down this road before, so I was in the same place that he was, where I don't think he's really seeing what other players around the league are, and he's overvaluing the guys on his roster. I just don't think that he's ready to compete, and to trade away a guy that's got less than a year of experience. And to me, I like the fact that he can hit for power. The one thing that I don't like about Kamade is he's got no power, he's got no eye, really.
So
And
what?
I just don't like those kind of players personally. So, I can, first blush, you say, oh, I pick up an all-star 25-year-old center fielder. But he's got 5 years. He's only got one more year before and he's already got an extension. I didn't even see that. He already extended him. So he's going to be paying him big money. And you
Right.
had a guy that was going to be cheap for the next 5 years, and you just traded him away. And so, I mean, he gets a talented player, but I just don't. I don't think it's a player that's going to move the needle for Nashville. He's a good piece to add if you've already got the good roster.
Right,
You're looking for a center
and
fielder.
that's kind of where I
Bam.
feel with it. Kamadi's a 2 to 3 win player. He's probably a little better than that just due to position scarcity and playing really good center field defense. But the other thing I like to do sometimes when I'm wondering about a trade is to close my eyes to AVK and gap power. And some people will go, well, those are ratings and you can't ignore them. Yeah, but AVK is kind of folded into contact. It does change their hit profile if it's high or low, but just for the sake of trying to get an idea of the value of the guy, let's just, let's ignore that. So what then is Kamade if we ignore gap power, which frankly is one of the most ridiculously overrated stats in the game. I don't care about gap power at all. And I mean, if it's a 1, I guess, but nobody's that low. Everybody's like
Yeah,
5 to 9.
I would care about gap power if he was hitting doubles and triples like he had 9 and 8 gap power. He's hitting 30, hitting like 25 to 30 doubles. Like that's not that outstanding.
Right, well,
I would think a guy
the
like
variation in gap power. It's not like guys with 5 gap power hit 15 doubles and guys with 9 hit 50. It's like the guys with 5 hit 20 and the guys with 9 hit 30. It's just not that big of a difference. So if you ignore gap power and AVK and go with the 3 rating system, he is a 9.45 player. He is a 9.45 right-handed center fielder. And not to get all left-handed preachy, but you need left-handed bats, just like you need right-handed bats. And although Kyle would argue that you don't need any right-handed bats, and I actually am doing pretty well with no right-handed bats, so maybe you don't. But assuming you need both, there are positions where you can get good left-handed bats, and center field's one of them. So he's a right-handed center fielder with 9.45 ratings, whereas Grant Lee is a left-handed center fielder with 7.85 ratings. That's just a better player. So
yeah. Well, the thing that worries me about Kamade is that he just hasn't produced. If he was 9.45 and he was hitting 320, 330 with 10 home runs, and he had like a 360 OBP or a 370 OBP, if he and he is hitting 35 to 40 doubles, if he was doing all those kinds of things, you'd think, okay, you're picking up a guy that is a good player, but he's not doing he's not hitting. So he's probably like a low 9 contact and a low 4 power and a low 5, so he's probably not quite as good of a hitter as he looks on paper. I mean, I just look at like the guy on my team, Chavez, who's been a higher value player, and he's 8.24. He's hit, the last couple of years been injured a little bit and hasn't hit the home runs, but he's hit between 5 and 10 home runs with 2 power, and Kamadi's hitting between 5 and 10 home runs with 4 power.
Well, the one thing I'll say about that is San Fernando Stadium is ridiculous.
But he was in Havana for 3 years before that too.
What was Havana like?
I don't know if it was any outstanding in any kind of way.
I feel like it was a little pitchery, but not like tremendously so. I don't really recall anymore, to tell you the truth. If it makes you feel any better, though, Kamade has bumped his. I said 8, right? But he's up to 9 contact now, so he is now definitely a low 9, high 8.
Yeah.
So again, this isn't the crap on Kamade. I'd love to have Kamade on my team. I don't think this is an unfair trade in terms of what's going either direction. I just don't think that this is the best timing for Nashville to make this move. I don't see any reason why they couldn't have just played Grant Lee.
Right. I kind of. It would be different if Grant Lee was, not quite developed, and you were thinking he's a teenager that's got a long way to go, or he's an underdeveloped 22-year-old, and you're not sure if he's going to get there, and kind of wanting to get some good value out of him now while he still has it. But he's getting pretty close to being developed, and he's 22, and he's kind of.
Oh, I'm totally. I screwed the pooch on this. I'm looking at bats right, throws left. They're both right-handed, so that whole thing just went away.
Yeah, but Grant has a positive versus left split, so it looks like he's probably going to be 7-8-5 against righties
No,
and
but
possibly better against lefties. So
right. But it's actually, oh man, that totally revises my opinion of this. To not being nearly as bad as I thought it was. I'm a dummy. Um, it's still
I
not
still think,
great.
yeah,
I
I
still
still
don't
don't like
like
it.
it
But
tremendously.
but yeah, I just think he's trying to strike when the team's just not quite ready yet.
When the iron is cold.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the other guys in this trade don't matter. But this has been debated quite a bit. So revision. I actually like Kamade slightly better as a player now. Before I had Grantley as a better player, and the timing was bad. But now I actually like Kamade a little bit better as a player, a little bit. But I still think the timing is still just the problem, really more than anything. Um, we already talked Yellow Springs, Brooklyn, Yellow Springs, San Fernando
Yeah. What
for
we've
Victor
got
Guerra
and that guy.
Furioso Osaragi, which I will make you say them all this time. I will do some of the tougher names. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't really know what to think about this trade. Is Guerrera the Kaz replacement? Is
Yeah,
that kind of what he's going to be?
sometimes I feel like Randy just trades players to trade players. He is he is. My understanding is that he's going to get some of Lacaz's bats. Sheldon Cooper is going to see some playing time, and Guerra will do some DHing and some right-handed bat time. I I would have been very wary about trading for Guerra, who has declined his ratings, and as he declined his ratings, had his performance absolutely tank last year. Like,
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Guerrera, the current version. If you were trading
yeah,
for Guerrera of 2 and 3, 4 years ago, that's a really good player to pick up. And Osaragi, I think he's still got a lot of upside as a pitcher. I think he's kind of one of those guys that he looks like he's developed, but he hasn't quite filled out his ratings completely. Like he still has a little bit of room to grow. He's going to get a little bit better the next
yeah,
couple of years. And he's not I mean, even at that, he's got a 4.39 FIP, so that's not terrible.
no,
Um,
he's not. I think he's a more useful piece, and he's younger. The one thing I'd say about him is that he is one of those righties that has a pretty ugly negative versus left split, and it's not horrible. I shouldn't, don't want you, but it's a full point, and that gets his motion against lefties into a pretty scary range. So he could struggle with left-handed power hitters, and that's not a good place to be as a pitcher. He'll never, I don't know that he'll ever get much more than a backhand starter out of him. But I guess then the question comes down to, would I trade a backhand starter that I can have for 4 to 5 years pretty cheaply for Victor Guerra? And I think my answer to that's no.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I just don't have a lot of confidence in Guerra to be the guy. Um,
Yeah, and to be fair, this this isn't like a crippling trade for San Fernando. They felt they had a need to fix. They had to get rid. They wanted to dump. I don't know if they had to, but it helped them quite a bit to get rid of Lacaze's salary, and they felt they needed a player to put back in there, and they felt that was more valuable to them than Osaragi will be this coming year, and that's possible. That's very well a possibility. It's just value wise, the player swap here is somewhat ugly appearing.
yeah, it's just kind of opportunity cost. It puts him close up to the cap for next year, which, speaking from experience, you've got a guy in who doesn't have a contract. He's got a potential arbitration season next year, but you want to get that guy locked up, and now you don't have as much wiggle room to be able to make that contract. Because he's obviously going to want more than the 12 million that he's estimated, and he's only got an extra 4 million in playroom. So that kind of makes that contract a little bit more difficult. And you've got a few other guys that are going to be needing some money soon. So it just means that it makes things a little bit more difficult than they have to be when you're adding a guy that's probably your fifth best hitter. I mean, maybe.
Oh, I don't even think it's fifth best hitter. It might be my fifth best hitter, but
Yeah.
Lee, Gilstrom, Garcia,
Maldonado.
Maldonado. I knew I was forgetting somebody huge. Maldonado.
Yeah.
Um, you
So I
know,
mean,
but
he adds power over what you had in Cooper. Sheldon Cooper's a no power left fielder, so you add a little bit of thump to the lineup. But I mean, it's just to me it puts a little bit more of a strain on their finances than he's worth. So
yeah, yep, I agree. Well, we're just in agreement all the time. We are in agreement. Are we in agreement about Wichita and Nashville? I like to say Wichita. I like to put like a W at the end of that and just make it. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Um, this is a dump of Ken Jenkins by Nashville, and they sold a prospect that's a pretty recent one, or reasonable one, like Lane Aldridge. He looks all right. I don't know that he'll ever be anything tremendous. He's got a little bit of negative versus left split. He's got a potential of 8.77 right now. He's 22, so he probably won't throw much harder. But you could make a reliever out of him. Like, you don't have to convert him, you just put him in the pen. Or he could be a decent back end starter. And
yeah,
I don't know that Nashville really got anything out of this. Like, Arturo Cruz is not a good starter. He just gives up too many homers. He had a couple good years where he was making it work somehow in Charm City, but the wheels have fallen off, and he has not been reliable for some time. James Bullock is he's just an okay-ish hitter. If he loses any range, he can't play the outfield anymore, so that's a little concerning. And then Domingo Rivera is too young to know much of anything. Who knows? He's 17. So this looks mostly like some throw-ins for selling a prospect to get rid of Bump Jenkins. And then my question would then be, then why did you pick up Bump Jenkins in the first place? And if you didn't just plan on eating that contract the whole time, and if what was the necessity to get rid of it now? And if the necessity was to extend Kamade, then that means that you traded a prospect to trade a younger player for an older one so you could extend the older player when you're not in a competition window. And when you stack all those together, it just doesn't seem sensible.
yeah. I don't really understand this one either. Nashville's got the salary cap space. To me, you just kind of hold on to Jenkins and you wait for him to get hot for a stretch, and that's when you unload him. And you find somebody that, like Wichita, that is all of a sudden, maybe looking to compete with salary cap space, and you just say, give me something that has any kind of chance. Like you trade him for a Domingo Rivera straight up. And, Rivera may never turn out to be anything, but you just traded Jenkins for potential of something down the road, and you don't have to give up a prospect. Aldridge isn't an amazing prospect. He's another back end starter, so it's not a huge thing to give up. But again, you're just like I don't mind giving up those guys if you're picking up somebody that I think has value. And Arturo Cruz, I feel like, is just Wichita saying you've got to take some salary back if I'm taking on that contract, because I don't think Cruz really is going to be anybody that's going to be anything more than a fifth starter, and that's kind of stretching it. Bullock's okay, but again, like you're not going to win anything if you're picking up okay guys. Like all these players that we're talking about, Nashville picking up and trading prospects for are, yeah, they're okay. Like you might if you kind of squint, like they could be okay in a platoon, but why are you giving up
A prospect
assets?
for that.
So to me,
And older
Jenkins is
prospects,
just
older
like
developed prospects, like not young guys that are far away. But like,
yeah. The thing with I look at what has kind of put this franchise in the place they are now, and it's trades like this where you trade away prospects to get an older player that is better now, and then you trade away a guy that's good now to get prospects that aren't as good as the prospects that you traded away to get the player that you got to get better. But really, Jenkins isn't much different than Kamade, except he can't play center field.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, Jenkins is like a 2-win player. Maybe if he gets hot, he's a little bit better than that, and that's when you can dump him. But I don't see him as that much of a downgrade over Kamade, and you gave up prospects to acquire him, Kamade, that is. So it's just kind of like you're hurting yourself by going two different ways in these different trades. So
yeah, and it's again, these weren't they're not awful. It's just kind of one of those. I don't know that it's the best sequencing of events. So
and maybe maybe he's got a plan, and
he does have a plan. He has the plan.
Yeah, he's gonna flip, Bullock in a trade to get somebody that's a little bit better. I don't know, but on the surface right now, and you're just looking at it, and you're not sure what's going on from the outside, it just looks strange to trade away prospects in one trade, and then turn around and trade away current value in another trade. That just kind of
and that works sometimes. There are situations where that kind of roster churn, but this isn't that kind of situation. Nashville, Calgary. I kind of want to make this one quick. Do you care about a single player? Is there a single player in this deal that you want to talk about at all?
No.
Okay, we're done with that one.
Okay.
It's one of those trades where you're just like, why? I mean, I guess maybe you needed some, but it's not even like they're trading like one position for another guy. Like, it was like 3 quad A to triple A pitchers went one way and 2 went the other way, and then Tony Perez doesn't, whatever, Tony Perez. Like, it's just weird. Good for them. All those players got new homes.
Shuffling the deck chairs.
Yeah, pretty much. So this is the Hawaii Omaha trade. I think there's a couple different things to this. This is Mike being a nice guy and helping Omaha get Santino back. And he extracted a little value for it, but I would say that Mike's doing that is because it's paying for his loss of his ability to use his Rule 5 position, not to try to extort. It's the I could have gotten something out of the Rule 5. There may have been a mistake in this player being able to be taken, but I need to recoup some value for that to send the guy back to you. And so he gets Stephen Peterson, who is, he looks kind of like a backup catcher, or right-handed half of a platoon. Interestingly, the game, I don't know if his catcher talents in the game is so bad right now, because I'm seeing some fairly high star ratings and people are like, nobody cares about star ratings. And I'm like, well, if you just ignore the star ratings entirely, you're ignoring potential information. And what that tells me when he's like, is the game thinks there's something decent about this guy to call him 2.5. I don't see it, but he kind of looks, he looks like a backup.
Yeah, if he had better defense, I would like him. I think he's got
or better offense, right?
Yeah,
one of the two.
Yeah, he's got enough of a bat that if he was, if he had like a 9 arm or a 9 ability, you'd say, all right, this is a guy that can start. But yeah, he doesn't have enough bat to cover the defense. He doesn't have enough defense to cover the bat. So, he's backup. Just kind of, like you say, he's a backup, and that's a
useful player.
Yeah, that's not terrible to have in your system either. Have extra backup catchers. And I mean, really, what did he lose out on in the Rule 5 draft? Is there anybody that got picked that could have been better than what Peterson is? And you don't have to worry about keeping him on the major league roster too. So, to me, Peterson looks like, hey, that's a decent Rule 5 pick, and you don't have to keep him on the major league roster. So,
right. And then some cash went the other way, a decent chunk of it. Let's talk about the player Omaha got back, and in Satino.
Speaking of star ratings, how is he a 2-star when Camacho's a 2.5 star?
I think it's because he can't defend.
Yeah, he's going to be. Honestly, he almost looks just like Camacho. I don't think he's got. He's a good hitter, but I'm gonna look. What is? Yeah, he tore up AAA, So, it all hinges on what he produces at the plate because, yeah, that's not very good. um,
No, he's in trouble defensively. Like, um,
he's not unplayable, but he's not somebody that you're wanting
yeah,
out either.
there's a chance that left field rating gets up to 6 or so. I mean, 9 air is pretty solid, and the 6 arm's good enough for left. So you wonder if that 5 is like almost a 4,
Right.
or if he maybe he just hasn't. How many games has he played in left? He hasn't even played 200 games in left, so that could pop up a little bit.
Yeah, and he was, I mean, negative 6.7 in 1,000 innings basically in AAA last year. I mean, that's not, um, if he hits well, that's definitely not the worst thing in the world. If he can keep that zone rating under 10, and
Yeah, I don't think he's going to hit that well though, right? Like
no,
he's
no,
in
no,
a
no, 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 he's not going to hit like that in the majors, obviously. But if he has an 800 plus OPS, and
he could be
he,
like a
yeah,
one and a half,
he's
2 win player.
so
And that's fair. The thing I'm not quite sure I understand about this is Omaha was pretty upset about. They seemed pretty upset about losing him for nothing. And I don't ever want to lose anything for nothing either. I mean, I get that. I'm not saying that's a ridiculous way to be, but I don't even know why they care about him so much because he can't play center field, and Maximo Cazeta is going to play there, or Starks if he moves Starks back to center field. Aubrey Anderson is probably going to play right field, and he seems to just, even though he's declined a little bit, he seems to still be a better player. Um, and Amer Barajas is in left field. And he stunk it up last year, but he also still seems to be a better player. Oh
yeah,
no, he didn't stink it up last year. He was fine last year. So like
but he could play DH. Olivares is not a very good DH.
no, he could DH him. Okay, there's maybe where he goes. All right, mystery
And he could
solved.
play first base too because Patrick Lou's not really some. Oh no, Lou's not going to play first base, is he? It's going to be, um, well, Munoz isn't amazing either. I felt like he had a really good year, but that was like three
No,
years ago now.
I actually, maybe I'll pick your brain on this because we cut through these. Well, okay, we're at 50 minutes. We should wrap up soon so that everybody can just not have to listen to us anymore. What do you think about Omaha this coming year? Like, I don't know. Have you looked at this roster much or just right now?
I haven't looked at the pitching staff.
Okay, don't
I,
worry about it then.
yeah, I don't know what their pitching staff looks like. I know their offense. I like their offense. I've liked their offense for a while. The one thing they're missing really is that big first base and DH bat. I don't think they're very good at those two positions.
No, and those aren't too tough to fill. Like if they add those, they could really take a big jump forward. Their pitching's good. It's not. They don't have like the true, like dominant front of the rotation starter, but Adam Barnard's starting to look pretty solid. And Matume, Carson Staller
Clulo,
never worked out. Clulo, that's a good rotation. And Gunther Popmeyer's name, almost it says Poop Meyer to me every time I see it, and he is rapidly becoming one of my favorite players.
yeah, the one thing I worry about with Stroller is I know you don't necessarily feel that way, but
The borderline starter.
I always downgrade a guy that's marked as a borderline starter, and he's
Yeah. No,
so I worry that that 4.6 is kind of what his true talent is. That's kind of where he's going to be. So but if that's your third or fourth starter, that's not terrible. And Barnard is a stud, and I don't Matume is going to be good. So those guys, and I think Clulo's going to be good too.
in a sneak preview of the previews, I have to finish writing tonight and get to run by tomorrow because it's opening days tomorrow, and I just the off season goes too fast for me to be doing all this crap. I've got Omaha passing Twin Cities this year in that division, and if they trade for like a first baseman or like a DH, like a really just another, or like one more impact player, I think it happens. Like I don't know.
I think in Twin Cities kind of talking about how there's problems with money and maybe trying to future proof by cutting a little bit of talent now to make sure that you can get all of his stars signed. Maybe that is what kind of puts them just a little bit behind.
Twin Cities to me, they just look like a team that maxed out and it wasn't enough, and it's not their fault. It just didn't work. Like Josh Brown never filled out his changeup. Kelly never filled out his changeup. They've had other guys that have lumped and didn't totally ever really get there. I think maybe, yeah, Travis Arnold was one of them.
Yeah, I thought that was a bad trade for me, but he ended up being just an okay guy.
Yeah, and like they've had that, they had some bats too with that happen, and it just seems like, they just never really took that big leap forward. They're good. They're a good team, but a couple little while ago, you looked at them and you were like, man, they're just going to be a monster, and it never really materialized. And I don't think that's a mistake or anyone's fault. That's just kind of what happens sometimes.
Yeah, I think I really do think Omaha can take that step forward. They've shown it in flashes in previous years over short stretches, right at the end of the year, making furious charges to sneak into the playoffs. I could definitely see them kind of being that next team. It'll be kind of interesting. Again, I think those four teams, or whatever you think of Des Moines, but at least those three teams, Omaha, Madison, Twin Cities, are pretty close.
Yeah, I don't have them that close, but I think they are all within possible striking range. I think they've, looking at them, I definitely have favorites, but yeah, they're close enough that I could see it going whatever way. They are the only really interesting division in the Frick. The other ones are pretty much cut and dry. In terms of like who the top two, maybe three teams are. Otherwise, it's kind of boring. Although I haven't looked at the Frontier a whole lot yet, but I don't think it's going to surprise me too much because Seattle and Calgary are good. Anyway, mini Frick preview there at the end as we realize that none of the trades were really that interesting.
That's true.
And we beat up Nashville some more. And Brett's just going to go cry in a corner, whimper. Why no one likes him? He won't do that because he is a stronger man than I am. I would have done that.
He's going to play this podcast on repeat in the clubhouse the entire season.
Just to throw darts at me. Just find some random awful internet picture and print it out and throw darts. Okay, well, thanks everybody that's still listening, if anyone's still listening. And thanks, Tyler, for being here.
Thanks for having me.